I dynoed this car maybe 2 months ago, but the map wasn't quite the final map yet, and we don't know what boost it even ran at. But we pulled 227 horsepower. We ran maybe 1.3 bar of boost, maybe 1.4. Now it's just under 2 bar. It'll be interesting to see how big of a difference that actually makes. In the kitchen, crack the window, the fumes. $243.
That's at 1.55 bar.
1.55 bar.
Although it says 2.55, 1 bar is atmospheric.
Yes, makes sense.
Yeah, so that's at 1.55.
When we ran it on VCDS,
yeah,
it pulled 1.93.
1.93. 1.9 bar reads.
Right. Yeah, so your gauge says 2 bar. Obviously this is just reading through OBD, but it's capping at
1.55.
Doesn't peak above that at all. But your map sensor could also be a 2.5 bar map sensor.
That could be the case, yes.
Then it will only have a threshold reading of 2.5 bar.
So when I made it home, I popped open the bonnet, found the part number for my map sensor, and searched it up on Google. You'll find that the pressure that this map sensor is rated for is 307 kPa. But if you translate that into bar, it's very simple. It's 3.07 bar, which makes me think that the boost gauge that we have in the car from factory is actually reading the correct value. I mean, why would they put a 3 bar boost gauge if it couldn't actually read 3 bar? So yeah, that all adds up. The boost gauge seems to be able to read, 2 bar of actual boost when you minus for atmospheric pressure. And VCDS, I imagine, must have been reading the correct value because it is capable of doing that. But according to this group chat message that I'm in here, it says that the OBD2 standard sensor PID manifold absolute pressure, which is the one we logged on the dyno run, is limited to 2.55 bar stock, which is exactly the value we got. Because it uses an 8-bit value internally and is based on kPa, the ECU can see the full 3 bar absolute that the sensor allows. There are VW specific sensor PIDs which can and do show the full amount of boost that is visible on VCDS. I don't know what these guys were using at the actual dyno, but they must have not used the value that you can select through VCDS that we saw when we done the actual logs, but they must have used, that one, which is exactly the result that we got. You capped that at 1.55. But then when looking back at the actual footage of the boost gauge, because I did film it this time whilst the car was on the dyno, it didn't look like we ran as much boost as we did on the day that me and Bart were doing the data logs with VCDS, and it pulled the 1.93 bar of max boost. So it does lead me to think that we did run below the boost that we were meant to run at. As we hit about 5,000 RPM here, it does look there like it's maybe reading like 1.8 bar, I'd say probably at the very most, but that should not equal to the amount of horsepower that we made and the amount of torque we make. We should be well above these figures. I can't believe it. We actually have to tune this thing even more now. Well, we thought we fixed the problem, but I don't know what's happened here today. From the tuner, he's got builds like this running well over 300 brake, and that's what we've been trying to reach, like at least sort of match his dyno numbers, because he ran 270 to the wheels and that was at 1.6 bar. I'm genuinely shocked that we weren't able to exceed our previous dyno result despite upping the boost. Like, not just theoretically, like we genuinely did increase the power. On the road, the car became noticeably faster once we put that map on that removed the torque limiter. Like, it changed the car completely. Yet, on the dyno, the figures are somehow literally the same. Now, pretty much immediately after the dyno run, I came home and I pimped out the looks of the car with some fancy high-on boost mirror caps for the Scirocco. And my God, you guys gotta admit, these look absolutely beautiful. I like them, okay? This car is already kind of a BMW at heart with the BMW halo headlights at the front. Now it's even more of a BMW wannabe, I suppose, with the sort of BMW style mirror caps. But nevertheless, I do love them. I would personally really recommend them. In other news, for those of you that saw my story, I was at APC a couple days ago and we were prepping a brand new remap to go on the car. Once again, I know this is like map number 4072, but it is a development car, it is a project car. I suppose this is a part of the game, isn't it? So Yeah, we got another map ready to go on. I believe there's been another major change to this map once again. I'll of course keep you guys updated on how big of a difference that makes, but I think before we go on the dyno again, we are going to be upgrading the cooling of this car. I think that is the next step we need to do, because not everyone is in the UK where it's constantly raining and windy. You know, in other countries it is actually hot and you almost can't get away with running like a stock cooling system. Just like we're probably not going to get away with it either. You know, it's not the best idea. Upgrading the cooling, I think, is necessary and should hopefully give us a little bit more power and more consistent power, hopefully. I don't know, we'll see. The goal with this build right now is still very much to hit that 300 horsepower mark whilst staying on a stock engine, because I know a lot of you watching this video are either doing a similar build to us or wanting to do a similar build on this same engine basically. And not everyone wants to spend a fortune on trying to get their car a little bit quicker, you know what I mean? And at the moment, we've spent quite possibly like the bare minimum, I suppose, getting it to this stage. And already, this is like a completely different car. It's still a 1.4 after all. It's still got very cheap insurance, cheap road tax. Maintenance on the car is cheap and easy. It's still very economical when you don't drive it like a madman. Now, when you do put your foot down, it's a completely different car. It no longer feels like you're driving a 1.4, not even close. So in that sense, I'm still very happy with the way things are going, but it's looking more and more likely that we're gonna have to do a couple more upgrades like cooling and possibly fuel injectors to get us to that 300 horsepower mark safely. You know, this is my daily driver after all. I ain't trying to blow this thing up, even though Bart secretly probably wants this engine to blow up so he can put his R32 in here or something. But I myself, I want to stick with this engine. I want to see what we can make out of this with some fancier mods, because my goodness, there's so much we could do still. And from the 0 to 60 time we hit, now that we know what horsepower we were running at, the future looks bright, is what I'm going to say. So if you guys want to check out my Santa Pod video, I'll put it up on screen here. The quarter mile time, I did expect to be a little bit better, like I was saying in that video. But now that we know what power we're running at, I don't think it was too bad, in all fairness. But the 0 to 60 time, dude, crazy.